let's do this last clip of Jonathan Turley because he's just so crazy.
Okay.
This guy has been. It is fascinating to me to see, Jonathan Turley is in like this massive race to be the next Alan Dershowitz. But I feel like he's already there, and he's just racing against himself every day. It's almost like he's trying to beat his best time.
He just needs an Epstein connection, and then it'll be full circle.
It'll be full circle. And here he is talking about, I guess, how unfair it is to white men that Joe Biden has nominated
Ketanji Brown Jackson,
a black woman, Ketanji Brown Jackson, to the Supreme Court, because white men never get a break. They never get an opportunity at something like this. Here's Jonathan Turley on with Tucker Carlson, who also never gets a break.
About it is that you couldn't do this type of threshold exclusion if you were a school or a business. The Supreme Court has declared that unconstitutional or unlawful.
Oh, pause it for 1 second. Let me just be clear what he's talking about. Joe Biden did not pass any legislation. He didn't. He simply said he is looking to find some balance on the court. It wasn't that like white men need not apply. Nobody applies. This is like you're nominating somebody. And he wanted to put on the first black woman on the court because it is absurd that there has never been a black woman on the court. Part of that also, was just simply a function of the decades and decades, actually centuries, in which black women were kept from law school and not given the opportunity to be judges, period. Now, Jonathan Turley has completely forgotten this. This is completely irrelevant to his assessment. Everything that has happened in the past is non-existent, according to Jonathan Turley. And
just really quickly, too, and the idea that this is in any way emblematic or like demonstrative of the way that everybody else is treated in the country, when this is such a specific example of a nomination to the Supreme Court, that there's no way that you can extrapolate this to how people in general in the population are experiencing these things. Also, it's silly.
Just to historicize briefly, Ronald Reagan in 1980 campaigned on putting a woman on the Supreme Court.
Yeah,
that's right. All right, so go back all the way to start it up.
About it is that you couldn't do this type of threshold exclusion if you were a school or a business. The Supreme Court has declared that unconstitutional or unlawful. Now, the reason it's unfair is that Judge Jackson's a remarkably accomplished jurist. She's been on the court for a long time. She has a stellar resume, a stellar reputation. She didn't deserve this. This wasn't of her making. And I think she would have been on the short list without that type of threshold criteria.
So I think everything you said is not only reasonable, but also consistent with like the American ethic in every way. So you said that in a column, and I believe you were, and I should just point out what's obvious to viewers, you're not any kind of ideological right winger or anything. You were attacked for this?
Well, I've got a lot of criticism. This is on just commenting about this nomination. I pointed out that because she's a trial court judge, for example, her many opinions aren't very useful in judging her judicial philosophy, because trial judges have to follow the precedent not just of the Supreme Court, but of the Court of Appeals. The vast majority of those columns are of those opinions are the typical things you get on the trial court. They resolve insular issues related to cases. And the left many of the critics on the left were vociferous and saying, well, how dare you? She has a lot of experience as a judge, something that I readily accepted. The fact is that we don't know a lot about her judicial philosophy. There are only a few of these opinions where she delves deeply into these issues. But also, when she was an appellate judge, she declined to answer the question when it put to her whether she follows the type of living constitution approach of many on the left. And she said the reason she wouldn't do that is it wouldn't be appropriate because she has to follow the methodology of the Supreme Court. Well, that was really odd. You have to follow the precedent of the Supreme Court. You're allowed to have your own judicial philosophy, and past nominees have discussed it, including Justice Barrett, who discussed it at length. So we're going to see how this unfolds in the confirmation process and how much we can learn about her view of judicial interpretation.
I mean, you got to.
So she has a stellar record, except for all of these really scary reasons that she's probably hiding.
Well, let's be clear, too.
And
I mean, if you
motivations.
want to go back and watch the hearings of Kavanaugh and of Gorsuch and how many things they would not address, it is stunning. But aside from that, I love the fact that somehow Jonathan Turley is very worried about Brown Jackson's legacy. Like, it's not fair to her. It's not fair to her. It's not fair to her. And it's also not fair to me because people were vociferous. Do you understand that? Like, what it's
the left needs to get it under control. We're not being vociferous out there, are we?
Do you understand what it's like for me as someone who is writing on Fox Nation that people would be vociferous in response to what I'm doing?
Just, give me a sticker or something.
I mean,
I did my best on that column.
Can't you please do something other than be vociferous in response? And of course, I don't mean actually vociferous because it was all in writing. But can you not be so literarily vociferous in response to what I've written?
Not that I even heard about his op-ed, as if this was some big explosion.
Right. Like there was probably 50 people who in the comments were like, you're just a tool, dude.
Yeah.
You've been a tool for years. I can't believe what I've gone through. But of course, it's just what it is. I mean, this is what wokeness is all about. She's very qualified, except for now she's not.
Can you imagine a universe in which maybe Biden just never said that he wanted to nominate a black woman and then he did nominate Ketanji Brown Jackson and Tucker was just okay with it?
Right. Yes.
And Jonathan Turley, they were okay with it. They're just mad that he announced that was his criteria or that he took it into consideration and said it publicly.
Right. It was just the easiest thing for them to address at that point, and forgetting that Ronald Reagan 40 years ago had said, I'm going to appoint, literally ran on it.
Yeah, he campaigned on it. And, it's just a shame he ruined Sandra Day O'Connor's legacy.
Oh, my God,
one
yes.
Against her.
Well, they aren't black, so there's
And
that.
Trump did too, right? About Barrett?
Mm-hmm. That he wanted to nominate a woman.
Oh, no. He had a list of actual individuals.
No, he wanted to nominate a woman
Heritage
to
Foundation.
replace Ruth Bader Ginsburg.
That's a question, though. So the way Biden did announce this, and we talked about this at the time, but it almost sort of invited this conversation because Biden could have just said what you said, which is
he wanted to.
Exactly. Biden baited them into all this.
Oh, without a doubt. I think that's what Sarah Palin said actually at one point. This was just a way to have us have a conversation about race. Well, yeah.
Because you can't help yourself.
But it's not just that. It's also an acknowledgement of an injustice that has taken place in our society. And it is a way of saying that this is overdue and that there has been injustice in the past and that this is an artificial, socially constructed reality that there are, that you have had a Supreme Court that has been virtually all white men for the history of this country. And it is an acknowledgement of that reality. And the fact that the right cannot accept that is why that it's so easy to bait them into it. So on one hand, it is Biden not necessarily saying we should have a debate about whether a black woman should be on the Supreme Court. It's Biden acknowledging that there has been an injustice and we need to articulate that injustice. And I'm doing that by addressing it.
And also by even cynically, this is him delivering for his most reliable or the Democrats' most reliable voting bloc.
Without a doubt. In the same way that Amy Coney Barrett was
not even delivering, I should say, but still it is important, right? Yeah. I mean,
let's be clear. The reason why Donald Trump is president has as much to do, maybe it is the biggest reason, for that empty seat on the Supreme Court that existed and his ability to appoint 3 Supreme Court justices. That's what motivated the Christian right.
I thought you were going to say white women. I mean, that was a huge reason that he won too.